This call or this webinar is recorded, so we'll just go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that we leave time for any questions at the end that come through at the end of what JP and I are here to chat about on today's webinar. Just as a heads up, our next slide, we have some information around closed captions and how to enable those if you need to. So if you need to get them enabled, if you click on the captions icon, it has a CC. JP, if we can just go to the next slide super quickly, it'll give a walkthrough of that. You may need to, if you don't see the closed captions icon, the CC, you might need to click the more icon first. And from that icon, you can choose show subtitle. If you need live transcript, you can click on the captions icon and choose the view live transcript. And like I mentioned, we are recording this, so this will be available in just a few days' time, and we'll have full subtitles included. So who am I? My name is Joshua Eden. I am a senior customer success manager here at Lumar, and I'm here with someone that I have the great honor and privilege to work with, JP Sherman from Red Hat. JP, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure thing. So I am incredibly happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And so I'm JP Sherman. I work at Red Hat. I used to be an SEO, and now I'm a principal product manager for the search experience and technology at Red Hat. Long story short, I am responsible for making sure that the search experience across all of Red Hat's properties are intuitive, useful, measured, and forward thinking. Also accurate would be helpful too. So that's what I do.
Thank you, JP. Before I hand over to JP, a couple housekeeping things on the next slide. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, our plan is to leave some space at the end to go through some of these questions. So please type into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. There's going to be feedback at the end of this webinar. Your feedback is super valuable to us. It's really important to make sure that we are hosting webinars that are valuable and insightful to you. So please feel free to leave us feedback at the end. And then, like I mentioned previously, at the end of, or sorry, not at the end, this will be distributed in like a few days' time for full recording so that it can be shared, distributed, rewatched. I saw something in the chat super quickly before I go to the agenda that Michael Jones just mentioned, JP, super quickly, that the audio from you wasn't super clear, just as a heads up. The next slide is the agenda. So we obviously just did some of the introductions and the housekeeping. As JP goes through his presentation, we'll be talking about defining what does human-first optimization mean, things finding things, reducing mental work, organizational adoption, question and answers. I'm particularly really excited about this webinar. Just before we get to our first poll question, I've been working with the Red Hat team on the SEO side and the accessibility side for about the last year and a half. And I am particularly impressed and inspired by Red Hat's commitment to taking this human-first approach to website optimization. Today is actually the first in what will be a two-part series where we've invited two key leaders at Red Hat, JP being one of them, to share what this approach means and what it actually looks like at Red Hat, its importance, and how it aligns with and helps drive the business's goals. That being said, we'll go to the first poll question. We'll have a slide for it. The question is, in your opinion, which area of website optimization is not currently prioritized enough by your website team? Some options include content-focused SEO, technical SEO, off-page SEO, web accessibility, site speed, conversion rate optimization, user experience, website security, or privacy, cookie compliance. There might be more than one answer for this, but what would you say is the one that needs the most prioritization that's not getting love right now? I'm gonna leave this up for just a little bit longer. Results coming in. Yeah, it looks like the top three would be off-page SEO at number one, and then web accessibility and technical SEO tied at number two. Awesome. Thank you for voting. So JP, we're here today to talk about human first optimization. I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you want to just talk through what that is and how you get it prioritized at Red Hat?
Sure thing. So again, thank you for having me. And I think the first thing that I want to say is that the entire thesis of how I approach search is that search is a human behavior first. Before there was technology, humans searched. There is a long tradition of humans looking for things before we had machines helping them look for things. So I try to take as my base thesis to understanding search and search behavior. So when I look at human first optimization in the context, I want to say that I want to understand the psychology and the behavior of humans as they interact with algorithms of search in a sales or marketing context. So starting with that foundation, that's how I start looking at human first optimization. The other thing that I want to say before we kind of start this is that I want to talk about the concept and understanding of not just behavior, but also findability, how humans find information. So while there will be some discussions about how to rank better, which is a very important and distinct subset of search, I want to pull the camera back and look at how do people search? Why do people search? And then how can we assist people looking for that information? And then overall, what benefit can that have to the business? So with that said, let's start with the first thing that people need, intent and desire. They need a thing. They need to look for a thing. They have a desire that they don't have. This is the core foundation of search behavior. The second thing that people really look at is search patterns. These are ingrained behaviors in the biology, in the evolution of humans. This is kind of refers to the story of the human that saw the saber-toothed cat lived. The ones that did not survive. So understanding how people search, understanding the traditionally the F-shaped heat map on Google search and how Google's newer designs kind of eschew that F shape and it's a little more chaotic. How are people searching your content? How are people searching your site search? And how are people looking for things? The third thing is information centrials. Before you get to the answer of what you're looking for, there are inevitably going to be some steps before you actually find what you're looking for. I like to use the example of if you're hungry and you see a fridge or if you see a refrigerator, the refrigerator itself will not satisfy your desire to eat, but you know exactly what is behind that refrigerator so that you can satisfy your desire. So I look at information central as visual or patternistic clues that can guide you to get closer to the desire. Acceptance and rejection criteria. This is one of those things where, as people are looking at the search engine results page, they have less than a second to either accept or reject a particular snippet. That acceptance and rejection criteria is almost never stated within the actual page. However, as a part of the behavior, people look at a result and say, yes, maybe, or no. And then trained versus untrained experiences. Google has had a very long history of having a well-designed search interface, so much so that when people go to other search experiences, there's an expectation of this search pattern is going to be similar to Google's. Now, for example, let's look at another experience, let's say either Spotify or Apple Maps or any other type of context in which you are searching. There can be a lack of familiarity with that particular application. So there's an untrained experience where you kind of have to poke in this. Thank you. I have two border collies and they're active. So when it comes to untrained experiences, these are people experiencing a search experience for the first time or through a system that is not immediately familiar to their previous understanding. So how to find things. Findability is a process where tactics and discipline combine to allow the user to access and reliably find what they're looking for quickly. And quickly is the most important thing. So there are some components to how people find things. I'm going to start kind of out of order. I think information architecture is one of the top level ways of how things are found. The way a set is organized through either navigation, through content, through drop downs, how a person can navigate from the homepage to an individual product or piece of content is a real process. I used to work at a cycling company, and we're cycling retail. And getting the user from the homepage to a specific brand, specific type, specific size of bicycle was my goal. If I can get there from navigation, that is a good architectural experience. User research. I need to figure out what do people actually do on the website. What are their needs? What are their desires? And how do they actually want to interact with the website? User interface and user experience. Another huge aspect of findability. These are people who are, because we're going to go into this a little bit later, but UI and UX is a critical aspect to understanding the mental load it takes for a person to understand and digest information. Testable empathy. It's kind of a fancy term, but it basically boils down to, I think people would like this. Based on my research, based on my experience, based on all of these things, my customers are going to want to experience this type of thing. And then test that. And then SEO, this is less controlled on your site from a search experience, but from Google's site. SEO is critical. And I want to call it specifically with tech SEO, things like page speed, accessibility, navigation, keywords, topical relevance, topical expertise. All of these critical and core aspects of technical SEO not only help with ranking and experience and all of the expertise, authority, trustworthiness measurements, but they primarily support the user's behavior. And then lastly, accessibility. Most people in the world don't have a standard way of experiencing a website. And so being able to build a website that is accessible to a larger population of people, always going to be helpful. All right. So here's a real thing that I've done. When I look at the user research, I identify the core desires. From a Red Hat perspective, we are a software company. We're an open source software company. And so when we looked at what people actually do, in this case on our customer portal or our support division, they deploy, they install, they migrate, they develop, and they administer. There are many other ways that they do this, but I like to look at action verbs. What do people do? How do they interact with my website? And then I have very specific definitions of these action verbs. So when I take a look at these verbs, when I take a look at this kind of metadata, when I look at content that is about deploying an architecture or installing a new version or changing from like software version 6 to software version 7, we're looking at migrating. So I look at these behaviors and we're building out content that has this types of metadata that's attached to these particular use cases. So this is a way for your search engine to understand a particular query. 2 is a way to assist your information architecture in organizing your content. It is a way to organize your data from a content management kind of system. So there's a lot of benefits in just understanding what people do how people do it, and then being able to organize, measure, and then be able essentially to recall them. So let's take a real practical example here. When I take a look at some of my Lumar reports for Red Hat, I pick security. So we have the page have security updates, bulletins, backporting practices. I've primarily focused on the level two. Off the main URL of security, what are my level twos? And when I look at this, I see some vulnerabilities or some gaps in what are the most important topics that I can identify from our current topical distribution. So we have things like vulnerabilities. And I look at this mismatch between security bulletins and vulnerabilities. This is when I go into our site search data and think, when people are looking for vulnerabilities, how do they look for it? Is this the best way to present that information? Are there other security related things that they're looking for that I can add as level two architecture or architectural elements to add to the security? So this is one of the ways that I look at Lumar as kind of a website intelligence tool to give me a level of understanding to what do I have, what do I need, and then be able to reliably at scale evaluate. Testable empathy. This is one of those things where um, in our particular context, that when people looked for a product, let's say Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we didn't know if they were looking for downloads or security or vulnerabilities or troubleshooting or anything else like this. In this case, the example was OpenShift. There were no secondary signals of intent when we come to like a high volume but low intent work. So we built this thing called the One Box, which collects all the major aspects of a particular product so that people could dive down to what they were looking for. And so we built this thing on the left-hand side, and it was great. But the problem was that we really kind of felt like when people kind of came to the search experience, they wanted to see search results. And so we kind of felt that maybe we needed to change this because we felt that there was a level of like taking up too much of the real estate on the search engine result page. So what we did, we tested it. And the hypothesis was we wanted this one box to be more of a billboard and not a road sign. We want it to be something that is assistive, a force multiplier, as opposed to the feature. And after testing this, we found that the challenger on the right-hand side, not only did it get a higher click-through rate than the original one box, content that was presented in the search results also got a higher click-through rate. So we realized that this assistive feature that we tested out started from a level of understanding our customers, started from a level of empathy. We tested it, and we have come out with a better, I would argue, cleaner, more intuitive search result page. So now we're talking about reducing mental work. Now, I don't want to say that people are lazy because we're all people. But I think that there's a level of unconscious optimization in the things that we do in the best case scenarios versus the reward. When I was studying animal behavior in my biology classes, we would talk about how nature generally evolves to getting the most reward doing the least amount of work. And this really does apply from a behavioral science perspective to website optimization. Again, this requires a level of empathy, this requires a level of research, and this requires a level of work from us. We need to do the work that people don't want to do. So how do we unconsciously optimize? The principle that I'm trying to get to is that people generally don't care where they get the information from. They just want to get the information. There are numerous discussions about content types or locations or things like this. And people are going to have their own opinions as to where this fits in, let's say, like an information architecture. But if the end result is that the most people find what they're looking for using the least amount of work, that is preferable. Um, so, for example, the analogy that I like to use is using roads over trails. Um, I have a Jeep. I love my Jeep. I go off road. Going off road takes a lot more effort, takes a lot more attention, it takes a lot more care, and it takes a lot more planning than going over an established road. So, what are the roads that websites can use that already apply to what people expect, what people do, and how can we um, kind of focus on the topics? We talk a lot about the purchasing funnel or the marketing funnel. There's a very similar kind of thing at play with using this type of funnel in terms of information architecture and navigation and discovery and findability, where when you're looking at, I'll use my cycling example again. Just yesterday, I went to Google, I typed in road bike. I was completely and immediately overwhelmed with a bunch of bikes, like 3 lines of bikes, 3 levels of bikes before I even got to the first actual natural result. If I'm looking for a term like road bikes, I don't want to buy a road bike. This is not where my decision-making process is. So how do we do better as websites? If somebody puts in your site search, road bikes, let's talk about types of road bikes, materials of road bikes, prices of road bikes, things like that. Like where's that person when looking for road bikes? Where are they in that purchasing funnel into their understanding or intention funnel? And then navigations, keywords, UI, UX, site speed, all of these apply to making sure that users are not frustrated, make sure that users are not spending extra time, energy, and mental work to find what they're looking for. Because again, there's always going to be a faster site. A little bit of future proofing. Google and humans have different overlapping goals. I kind of look at this I've had conversations inside Red Hat. Google wants to make money for their shareholders. That is what they do. And when we're looking at, let's say, a crawl budget, Google spends real energy, real money crawling a website. And Google does not want to waste money. So if we have a difficult time crawling, if Google is difficult time crawling, they're not going to crawl. So Google looks at this again as a cost benefit analysis. So from a human behavior perspective, people want to look for they want to find what they're looking for. And the trade-off here is accuracy and time. When we talk about the traditional search engine result page, the 10 blue links that Google has kind of, I'm just going to say complicated. I'm not a fan, but it's complicating. It's kind of spoiling user choice. But looking through the 10 blue links that used to be there from Google, the cost is time versus cost. People are spending more time looking at Google's results to find what they're looking for. Now, as we've seen some examples of Google experimenting, pushing AI answers, AI results, Google has reduced the time of discovery, and that's really cool. The problem is that it's coming at the cost of accuracy. And a core criticism of Google AI is that because the AI is not yet mature to a level of expectation and accuracy that Google has previously had, it is seen as bad. So Google's kind of taken a hit of accuracy at the benefit of reducing the level of time. So when you lose that accuracy, then you see the time is wasted. And as a result of this, Google has significantly dropped off the level of AI stuff in the results. And taking a look at your website, your experience can and should be both. You need to look at things like the information architecture. your topical relevance, and the actual like page load speed. People will, I don't want to say subconsciously, because that's not exactly the right word, but if you, I'll just put it this way, nobody's going to celebrate by getting by a person getting exactly what they want on the website. That is what is expected. Balloons are not going to drop from the ceiling when they get a good site search experience. This is the standard. This is the expectation. If people get what they expect, they're going to come back. But if people are frustrated, if they're confused, if they don't find what they're looking for, then the experience suffered. And even when it's fast, if the experience suffers, then people are going to struggle. And we have a full question.
Yeah, I got this one. AI search approach, when it comes to preparing for generative AI search results, which approach do you prefer to take? And while people are answering this, we'll leave a little bit more time. Just a heads up, JP, I got a couple messages about just the audio being maybe a little bit choppy, a little hollow, maybe. Not sure if there's a whole lot you could do there. If not, that's okay. Virtual environment, we get it. But we'll leave a little bit more time up for this question, just in case there is something to look into.
In that case, I'll see if I can switch headphones. Is that cool?
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you really good
Is this
there.
better?
I think, yeah, I think so.
Okay, good.
We'll have just nice, crisp audio for the Q&A portion. Overwhelmingly, wow, optimize our web content for more inclusion in AI search results. Wow. 92%. Awesome. Thank you for voting. I know we have kind of like one more slide left before we go to some of the questions that have already come through. So JP, I'll hand back over to you for kind of the last thing that you wanted to touch on, and then we'll go to some of the Q&A.
All right. So let's talk about adopting some of these concepts and behaviors and plans into your organization. I think the biggest thing is really to understand and communicate the short and long-term goals. From the short term, I really want to focus on increasing conversions, in making sure that people are, one, finding what they're looking for, and two, being able to have the value communicated to them so that the conversion can be made. This has a high level of reducing friction, and it creates a better, trustworthy experience. The way Google looks at it is that the way Google makes money is by sending users to high quality websites. And having a high quality website generally ranks better. And having a high quality website also increases conversion. And this really kind of leads into the search experience optimization, it's a little bit different than a search engine optimization. Search experience optimization is about optimizing the search experience so they are finding what they're looking for, as opposed to search engine optimization, which I feel can, while is useful, not balancing search experience and search engine optimization can lead to a hyper keyword focus, more focus on the keywords and less focus on the actual human that's doing the looking. Both are important and both are critical. And I think that both types of optimization can live in harmony in a website. Now, when we're looking at longer term benefits, this is really seen in the depth and breadth of information architecture and topical signals. The more you understand how your users are interacting with the website, the more you understand their goals and experiences, the changes that can be made through some of the revelations of Lumar. These are things that we use to either add to different sections, break out different sections, turn them into different fragments, and work out the understanding of things like understanding a product. What is the product? How do I install this product? And then understand the kinds of questions that people ask based on this kind of search data, support data, all these things. These can all be turned into very, very high quality subtopical pieces of content that can directly serve your users. And then lastly, from my perspective, we've had a lot of Google updates, a lot of core updates, and Google's kind of sent shockwaves through our profession because now
JP, we just lost audio. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. I think he lost audio too. And he's sharing, so he can't see me. Yeah, yeah, I don't have anything to write with. Oh gosh. That would be a brilliant idea, Liz. I'm sure this part is awesome. Yeah. Phone call him. I don't think he can hear us at all. Yeah, no audio from you. Can you hear us now? One second. All good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we got about I would say if you could do kind of that last bullet again, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remind me where I stopped.
I would just say about the by optimizing for humans over algorithms, we kind of lost the last few minutes there, and it looked like you had some genius that was coming through. So I want to make sure we get all of that.
I assure you it was brilliant.
and I don't know if I can recapture it, but we'll try.
And also, I have all four boys here. It's lunchtime, so let's just embrace this chaos.
I'm here for it.
Say optimizing for humans over algorithms. It's really about kind of understanding what Google wants. And what Google wants is to send people to websites that are excellent, high quality websites. And as Google updates its algorithm, the core algorithm from AI, every single move Google does is about understanding what quality is. It increases the resolution of what quality is in Google's mind. And so when we focus on the algorithm, we focus on the tactics, and we don't always focus on what Google wants or what Google is doing. And so by looking at a human first perspective, the goal is to build websites that understand what people want, understand your customers, that understand how people interact with that website to find the things that they're looking for, either through information architecture, navigation, or search. And the core goal is, when you take a human first approach, when you take an empathetic, research-based, testable approach, you are better prepared to weather Google's mercurial core updates, because you're already focusing on the human side, the behavioral side, and doing that, you're going to be in a level of parallel directions with Google. And so instead of, now I have to change this new tactic to fit with what Google says, I am already going for a human first. I'm already in parallel with what Google wants. And that reduces the actual work, panic, stress that is experienced as Google decides to, update its core algorithm for the 20-something time left. Was it? So it was 23, like 20-something times. And to me, that level of work versus reward is such a significant improvement to what people already do from an algorithmic focus, that in itself is worth the time. So thank you so much. I know that this is a really wide topic, a really big thing, and lots of nuances involved, but please reach out. I love talking about this stuff. And Josh, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, JP. I think we can leave this slide up before we end up going to the last poll question, because a couple of the questions I want to see. We have some room to answer some of these questions, I think. So I think leaving this slide up is helpful. One of the first messages that I got was, or that we got was, what is your ideal team structure to best execute on a human first website optimization strategy? And they kind of give me an example. They said, which roles should be in place? SEO, UX, content? Should they all sit in the same department if they are all in-house staff? Like, what do you think that should look like in your ideal world?
Okay, so I think so the first thing is, I don't think there is a best organization. Mainly because I think SEOs are generally SEOs in general, we are curious and we are tenacious and we are clever. And no matter what background we come from, almost all of us have those three qualities. However, with that said, I want to say that I really enjoy having I'll call a tech SEO, a content SEO, somebody who can, either a person who can do both or a pair of collaborators. Somebody who works on accessibility and design, somebody who looks at front end, and somebody who looks at back end. Because there's a lot, everything from, looking at how, let's say, Adobe Analytics interacts with your website and causes some backups, where that's placed, having somebody working on the back end who has a tech SEO background. Also, I like to have fairly leaner teams. So that would be my core. And when we talk about content creation and things like that, one of the things I like to do is build out content creation platforms. I may not work with the content writers, but when I take analysis of, let's say, our site search data, I like to build out, these are our gaps, these are what the questions that people are asking, and then send them to the content team so they have a regularly updated seed questions and seed content that they will be able to use for as long as they need.
We're gonna have to go back a little bit in time for these next three questions. But some three others that we have, we'll start with this one from Sarah. What do you mean when you say that Google has taken a hit with regard to AI and diminished accuracy? Can you explain what the hit is?
Google's AI's hit really comes from the level of hallucinations that it's given. One of the most amusing ones I've seen is, how do I keep cheese from sticking to my pizza? Google found, thanks, Christine. I think you found it. Google found a 15-year-old Reddit post of somebody jokingly saying, add glue. And so now let's take it from a real perspective. Like, that's not helpful. So Google traded speed for accuracy in that case. And it was fast, but it was terrible. And so when I say Google's taken a hit, people are generally not going to look at a obviously bad or wrong answer just because it's fast. And Google has markedly dropped back the level of AI assistance / interference in search results. I read, I think it was from Lily Ray, down to like 7% of queries are AI generated, up from, I think it was close to 70-something% that were AI generated. Google has recognized that they are sacrificing relevancy, trust, and accuracy to be slightly faster. So when I say take a hit, they took a hit. That's what I mean.
The pizza on the glue story reminds me, I have a friend who is authoritative in the space that they're in, and are well known in the space that they're in. They do a lot of writing and contribute to that like community in that space. And when we like looked up when Bard first kind of went live, just kind of their story, which is very well known, their story, like who is this person, right? It said that like they went to I don't know, somewhere in California for school, like Caltech or Berkeley or something, and got their master's in like IT or cybersecurity, something like that. And it's like they essentially graduated from like community college with an art degree in Colorado. Was totally wrong, was not even close to being right. And again, their information was or this friend's story and information's very much so out there and really easy to find. So we found that hallucinated answer to be quite hilarious because it couldn't have been further from the truth. Another question from the audience. How do you balance the needs of a technical audience who knows what they want and how to get it, and the needs of the less technical audience who may need more help getting what they need without just giving them a chat window, whether human or AI?
I will be super honest. I am trying to figure that out myself. And it's there is I think that first of all, great question. And I think that a balance exists based upon where you live in a space. I think so, because I've primarily worked in the past 11 years, I've primarily worked in knowledge content. Prior to that, I've been working in retail, and the needs and desires and the expectations of retail is very different than the needs and expectations of people who are looking for informational content or descriptive or troubleshooting content. So, and I would say that those two things would not be the same. So, however, the way that I would go about this is honestly just by doing a level of primary research, reaching out to your customers, either through 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 some means of acquisition, either coupons or discounts or whatever, asking them very, very simple questions like, when you come to this website, what are you looking for? How do you use this website? If you came to what is the one thing that you do? Or if you do several things, narrow it down to one. And then I'm thinking out loud. I think it starts with primary research. The second thing is that applying, I would argue, intent filters or an intention AI or an intent-based learning situation. One of the things that we've done on Red Hat site search is we've taken our body of queries that have a troubleshooting intent, and then we added the troubleshooting experience as a part of the search engine results page. So when people look at, they say, my Linux broke, we're like, we see that, we understand that is troubleshooting. So we're going to give you a slightly different experience than somebody looking for, how do I buy a Linux? But I think from the best case scenarios, it's more about starting with the human, getting into understanding from, I would even say programmatically, like a machine learning aspect, to get these basic core concepts of what people are looking for, and then look at from a chat perspective, being able to kind of break them off by intention and having essentially answers for each type of thread. So this is me thinking out loud, because that's a really tough question, but it's a really good one.
I was gonna say it is a good question, and it feels like a work in progress, not just even for you, but for a lot of clients that I talk to, as I try to think through what they might say. So thank you for sharing your thoughts where they are.
I have a friend who says learning in public, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. We have room for probably like just 2 more questions. How can content strategists and marketers work with SEO experts to produce human first optimization?
Okay. Love that question. Here we go. So one of the things I start with is our site search data. And because one of the things is that I start with it with actual human behavior. If somebody is searching your site search, they have an expectation that you have what they want. So we start with that assumption. 2, they may not know what they're looking for. I'll give you an example. I was at a restaurant the other day, and they had these like spinny things, and it prevented flies from landing on the food. And I'm like, what is this spinny anti-fly thing? I had no idea that it was called a fly spinner. Like, if I would have thought for 2 seconds, I probably came up with that term, but I called it an anti-fly spinning machine. So I typed in fly spinning machine in Google, and I got to Amazon, and they're called fly spinners. So from a content perspective, look at what people are looking for in your site search, because these people are engaged. They've already proved that they will interact with your site. They think you have what they want, and then start categorizing them. And then you're going to start discovering that people are going to be looking for things that you have, things that you don't have, and they're going to find, and then take a look at the queries that result in 0 clicks. So if I looked for anti-fly spinning thing or spinning machine, and I didn't find what they're looking for, and I got 0 clicks, look at that word, look at that query, and say, I think I know what they're saying. Like, he's clearly an idiot, or at least creative. Maybe I need to create content that represents what they're looking for, or add, not the keyword that I said, but like add levels of content because you're clearly missing something. I will, from a Red Hat perspective, we went through this real exercise where people are looking to upgrade from one particular version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux to another version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And as a part of this exercise, we clearly noticed the search signals, or the queries that came on our site search, the queries that came from Google, and recognized that we didn't have enough content to actually fulfill that need. So that's really how we look at, from an actual human behavior, which is a search result or a search query, to content being built through a content pipeline. That is the best possible way that I can recommend looking at behavior, measurement, content creation results.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. I was going to leave room for one more question, but I think I'm leaning towards we'll hold off on that one. Before we go to the last slide, like I mentioned at the top of all of this, this is kind of part one of a two-parter. Date is to be determined, but we'll send out emails and communication soon. We'll be doing another webinar. JP and myself will be joined by one of Red Hat's senior product managers and their digital accessibility subject matter expert, a lovely human named Nina Roby, will be joining us to talk about how Red Hat took all of this human-first optimization and didn't just implement it on the technical SEO side, but really at their core bought into digital accessibility and creating websites for everybody. So I'm very excited to have Nina join us on the next webinar. JP, if we can just go to the last slide. We popped this up earlier. If you're interested in learning more about, how Lumar supports JP, Nina, Red Hat on the SEO side, the accessibility side, on our newly released site speed side, feel free to click yes, maybe later, maybe now's not the right time, and that's totally okay. We get that. We're glad that you're here no matter what. And we look forward to seeing you. We have a webinar next week talking about some of our new releases with Z Mansour and Odette Colebrook. And like I said, soon we'll have more communication out about when the part two for the continuation of this conversation will be happening, but should be in the next couple months. So thank you all for taking the time to join us. We know that your time is super valuable. So we appreciate you spending it with us the last hour. We hope you have a great rest of your day and week. Take care, everyone.